Beverly Hills 90210 came about at a time when I had actually, when I sold Doing Time on Planet Earth, which was, which I sold to Warner Brothers, I was 24, so I was young, and I was like 2 years out of college, so even I was a little, I wasn't prepared to sort of have a sale at that young, but it was a good time to do it because there were a lot of teenage oriented movies out there in the marketplace, and Shane Black, who I went to UCLA with, had sold Lethal Weapon not too far from then, not around that time. So there were I think there was the idea that you gave younger writers a shot, and the door was open in a sense, and there was some opportunity there. So after I sold the script, I had I got an agent, Steve Rabinow, who actually continues to be my agent today, and I wrote, I wrote screenplays for a lot of the studios. I mean, I did rewrites, and I wrote screenplays, and I did a sort of a big page one rewrite. In fact, I got, I got screenplay credit on it, but it was based on a story written by somebody else I'd gone to school with, a guy named Fred Decker, who wrote a movie called Teen Agent, and Warner Brothers sent it to me to rewrite, and I loved the idea. It was about a teenager who's mistaken for a spy and goes on this sort of it was a James Bond spoof, and I love James Bond films. So I wrote that. I wrote that movie, which got made at Warner Brothers with Richard Grieco, and I was just writing a number of. I was sort of a pretty busy working writer in my 20s when I had written a script at TriStar for an executive named Paul Stupin, who then left TriStar and left the position. I thought at the time, damn, this is not going to get made now. And in fact, another executive came in, gave me endless notes, and it seemed like it wasn't going to get made. Didn't get made, but then Paul called me and said, he'd become head of drama at Fox, which was sort of this new network. And I think you have to realize at the time, the idea of being a working screenwriter, fairly in demand, that I was getting jobs, and television is something you just thought you were lucky enough not to be working television if you were working as a screenwriter. At least that's what I thought. And I think that was sort of the idea at the time, was that there was a hierarchy and movies were here and television was there. But he called me and asked if I was interested in talking to them about developing a TV series about high school in Beverly Hills. They'd mistakenly thought they'd owned they mistakenly thought they owned the rights to Beverly Hills High, which in fact they actually didn't, which is why we were never able to refer to the school as Beverly Hills High. It was always West Beverly. In fact, we had to do a lot of gyrations for legal reasons to make sure that the audience understood that we were not doing a show about Beverly Hills High. And if you look at the first season of 90210, or first two seasons, there are many references to West Beverly High is playing Beverly Hills High in football next week, just to make clear that this is not Beverly Hills High. It's the fictional West Beverly High. But in any case, I met with Paul and I met with the Fox executives, and they had Aaron Spelling was attached to produce this pilot, and I didn't understand anything about the business, but other than the fact that I was, thrilled beyond anything to meet with Aaron Spelling, and in fact they owed him a pilot commitment because they were going to do Angels 88, which they didn't. I wish they had. I would have liked to have seen that show. Mm-hmm. But, and so they rolled it into this Beverly Hills High show. And I met Aaron at his house. He is a charming, avuncular man and a legend. And he met me. I distinctly remember meeting Aaron in his living room, not at the big house he moved into, but sort of the more, still a mansion, but modest by the scale of the next one. And he was wearing like a tracksuit, and we talked about the show. he saw this movie Doing Time on Planet Earth, which eventually got made. Talk about that story, which is sort of a interesting little episode. And the movie did get made by Charlie Matthau. Walter Matthau's son directed it at Canon Pictures. So I got to work with Menachem Golan back in the day, and he was quite a character. And anyway, that movie took an unexpected journey. It was started as a big budget movie at Warner Brothers and got made eventually as a little low budget movie at Canon. So it didn't turn out the way I'd expected, but Aaron Spelling liked it, and he saw it, and he we had our meeting, and he approved me to write the pilot script. And at the time, Aaron is a marvelous storyteller. I mean, I think for all of Aaron's strengths, I think he just has a really strong sense of the audience and pleasing an audience, and just sort of how to tell a story. So it was really, for me, just an amazing experience to be able to just sit in a room and bounce my ideas off of Aaron. And he was very available. He didn't have a lot. He had a big company, but not a lot of production, not a lot going on. So I think he just I think we both really, I think he enjoyed the experience. And I certainly was enjoying writing the pilot. And then the pilot got made. And at that time, I thought, well, of course the pilot's getting made. It's good. They got to make it. But I didn't realize it was like not a typical experience that, you write a pilot and it gets made. And in fact, it was a 2-hour pilot, so I wrote it like a movie. I should go back to say that when I spoke to the guys at Fox about 90210, I felt a particular ability to write this show because I had written a number of teenage-oriented movies, and I was a big John Hughes fan, and I felt like that the movies were sort of capturing an honesty about the teenage experience, and television was not. And television was so far behind in terms of providing any insight or honesty into what it was like to be a teenager, and that it just needed to catch up. And so I kind of was when I talked to Fox about the show, I basically said one of the shows that I loved was 30 Something, and I said I wanted this to be like 30 Something for teenagers, and that 30 Something was I thought was very insightful about characters in their 30s, and the stories were small. And I said with 90210, anything that matters to these teenagers is what the story's about. And it's not about parents solving teenagers' problems. It's about teenagers solving their own problems, and in fact, adults should be superfluous. Ironically, when we shot the show, they were so worried about the fact there were so few adults in there that the parents had a lot more to do sort of in those earlier episodes, but and sort of less and less as the series went on, because it was very much about the kids, and it was also about trying to be as I guess just frank, honest, but more like as you could be in television at that time, but just more modern. I mean, television I felt like shows about teenagers were written by much older adults who were basically generally making fun of teenagers. And there hadn't been a show written, and I was still young enough that I had a strong sense of what it was like to be a teenager, and I could really access that. And I just didn't feel there was a show that was relevant